So here we are, John 10, week 31, the joy of following the Good Shepherd. And, one of the great joys of my life since 1983, I've taken hundreds and hundreds, 2,500 people at last count, physically to the land of the book. One time, we stopped the bus and my son popped off and walked through that herd of sheep. Isn't that beautiful? That was in the Jordan Rift Valley, and they're everywhere. When you go to Israel, they're just sheep all over the place, and Bedouins and shepherds and everything else. And I always love that picture because I think about why the Lord said, my sheep. He didn't say, he picked sheep as the quintessential description of those of us that are his followers. And there's a lot of good reasons for it, but my sheep hear my voice. We're going to look at that today. Now remember where we are in chapter 10. And everything in the Bible is connected. Every time you study any verse of the Bible, the other 31,000 verses are sitting like an inverted pyramid poking on the chapter that you're studying. The other 1,188 chapters, the other 31,000 verses. Everything in the Bible is connected, and all of it, remember what the Reformers said, the best way to understand the Bible is for the Bible to explain the Bible. The more you understand the entire Bible, the more that every verse comes alive. Well, look where John 10 is. It's right between the last two sign miracles. You say, so what? Oh, that's important because John tells us that's the framework that God inspired this gospel, this final gospel, to be written around. Those 7 sign miracles. That's what John 20, 30, and 31 says. That these signs were picked out of all that Jesus did. John said Jesus did so much, the earth would not contain all the books that were written about him. But these are written that you might believe. So what are we supposed to believe? Well, right between the sight to the blind man in chapter 9 and the raising of Lazarus is chapter 11. Is this 10th chapter we're looking at. Now look at the buildup. First, the signs tell us how salvation comes to us. The water into wine says salvation comes to us miraculously. By the way, that took place at Cana. You see the at Cana thing. Then he healed the nobleman's son in chapter 4. Salvation is by faith. That took place, the miracle, at Capernaum. But Jesus told him it would happen from Cana. You can see that I make the students track geographically with where all this is happening because it's important. Then, thirdly, when Jesus healed the paralytic, the third sign, salvation is by grace. He was unable to chase after and find Jesus, so Jesus found him. And that was at the pool of Bethesda. So that's how salvation comes to us. Then the last 4 signs are about what salvation does to us. Remember that hymn? What a wonderful change in my life has been wrought since Jesus came into my heart. Oh, that every Christian had a wonderful change. I was talking on the way in from the parking lot. I heard a voice behind me saying, Dr. Barnett, Dr. Barnett. And I stopped and walked back, and the lady says, and started talking about Kate Christian. She knew about where we were from in Michigan. And we were lamenting the fact that so many religious people have all the facts. They're orthodox in their minds and empty in their hearts. The truth has not dropped that 18 inches from being mental assent to personal reception of Jesus Christ. So when Jesus moves in, what happens to us? Number 1, the feeding of the 5,000 says he brings satisfaction. It says the wicked are like the restless sea in Isaiah. Remember that? The wicked are always restless, but great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. And it says, oh, that you would hearken to me, God says, and your peace would have been like the river, and your righteousness like the waves of the sea. That's how Isaiah explains it. It's that satisfaction. Jesus said that at Capernaum. He stilled the storm. Salvation brings peace. What is peace? Hebrew word? Shalom. You know how all the Jewish people go, shalom, shalom, shalom. That greeting comes from the Hebrew verbs, the 3 radicals, shalom. Do you know what shalom means? That shalom comes from peace? It means to be made complete. Salvation is when we're finally complete. Then we're satisfied. We have peace. We're not endlessly looking for something. You know, I go to that Citrus, whatever it's called, mall somewhere south of here, I think it is. It's filled with people aimlessly looking for something. They're just looking for something. And that's what American culture is. They're looking for something. They're incomplete, and they hope that pill or that woman or that man or that job or that car or those expensive shoes or something will, they don't have peace. And then he healed the blind man in chapter 9. Salvation brings light. Paul put it this way, his testimony, he opened my eyes and turned me from darkness to light. Acts 26:18. And then when Jesus, the last sign in chapter 11 is raising Lazarus, salvation brings life. That took place at Bethany, and the other one took place at the Pool of Siloam. You can see where that happened. And those are the signs. And right between those last two signs, in chapter 10, Jesus is introduced as our good shepherd. And he's back ministering in Jerusalem. By the way, the whole Bible gives all these clues about when it's happening and where it's happening and what's the surrounding. And that's the joy of Bible study. The more you understand the context, the more likely you'll come to the correct interpretation. Did you know there's only one correct interpretation of every passage of the Bible? That's called the first canon of textual interpretation that you learn in seminary. There are many applications, unbelievable number of applications, but there's only one correct interpretation. What is that? What God communicated in the direct communication of his truth to the original recipients. Everything else is ancillary. The first law of textual interpretation is, what was he saying to who he addressed it to, before we start applying it to us, which we need to do. And so, if we understand the context, the historic context, the geographic context, the theological context, the analogia scriptura, how it fits in the flow of the Bible, the more likely we're honing in on what it's about. Jesus is back in Jerusalem ministering. It's the fall and winter. How do we know that? Chapter 10, verse 22 tells us it's in December. Did you notice that? I mean, it's amazing. Each of his miracles and messages are so pointed as he nears the final countdown for the cross. Jesus gets focused. Everything he does